Okay, we can officially say spring has arrived. Definitely. I mean, the daffodils are out and the
Mhm.
drops are out. So I think we could safely say spring's arrived. Although we've not had the winter period yet. The time
So true.
between the time that you get the first week in April,
Mhm.
you usually get that just a bit of snow, and then we're done. We're at the summer. We're at the spring season, moving on to summer. So
Mhm.
this is all about today's show is all about the getting sold in spring. It's really about if you're looking to sell or if you're currently selling. This is about giving your home an instant spring lift to sell fast and potentially sell high. I mean, some markets are different from others, but there's an opportunity there for definitely when you're getting that first impression. And this is what we're going to talk about. Daffodils, bluebells, and tulips are all out in force, and the bare branches are actually starting to fill with buds and leaves and blossoms, and so it definitely must be spring, I would say. As the time of um, fresh starts, now is when buyers come out of hibernation, definitely, in their droves, basically. Is that right, Perry? Buyers are usually out in their droves and ready
Absolutely,
to
we see
go.
that coming in. Yeah, we definitely see that in spring because through the winter, everyone's thinking the garden doesn't look great, the house looks dreary, everything looks wintry, and spring comes and you feel like your house just shines a bit more, don't you?
Yeah, and so do many sellers, though, as well, don't they, Sophie?
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely, definitely. Spring has sprung, and I was just out doing marketing this morning, and what a difference just even having that blue sky as a background. It just like shining down on the property, and it's just perfect.
Makes a fundamental difference, doesn't it?
Mhm.
And spring is reliably a busy time of year, with homes coming up for sale, definitely. So the question really, everybody should be asking yourself is, so how do I stand out from the crowd, making make top buyer shortlists, I would say. How do you get to number one in their thinking? How do you stand out from the crowd? What do you need to do to your house in order to do that? And sell and possibly sell for the highest price that you can in the prime selling season, before the prime selling season actually ends. Now is the time, always. Now is always the best time to sell. Nothing beats, I would say, the scroll stopping listings and the heart stopping viewings, and that creates that winning combination in a single weekend. And so we're going to talk about some of the tips. What are some of the tips we're going to talk about, Perry?
I think the priority one, and I can speak for it because I was doing it myself this weekend, is having a thorough spring clean. Because I think we all feel that the doors and windows and everything look a bit cakey at this time of year, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
I think as well, just embracing colour and the power of flowers is an amazing thing. It just brightens up a complete room. So again, if you're a seller, preparing's great. If you're a buyer, you want to see that because it shows that the property is cared for. I think also amplifying your home's natural brightness.
Yeah.
Like Sophie, I was at a property this morning and the sun was beating in and the house just felt so much better because all the brightness that was coming through the room. So I think that's a real key factor. I think also blending current trends with some classic spring styles as well is a good thing. This particular client had fruit bowls with nice lemons and oranges and limes, and just all the colours were in this bowl, and it just made you want to jump into that kitchen. And I think also giving your garden or your balcony, if you have one, or your courtyard, whatever you may be, your outside area looks like, getting that a real good spring clean is a great thing as well. Not only does it make the house look great, but you feel great for doing it too. Your
Yeah.
curb appeal is a big thing.
So surprising. Well, I mean, with little cost and effort, you can hit the market with an almighty splash overall, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
And I think nobody can resist that when you get your property. I mean, there's properties that there's no rhyme or reason for it. There's some properties that just come onto the market and they're gone. It's everybody inquires them, everybody wants them. And you're kind of scratching your head thinking, why? But and there's some properties that you think you're going to hit the market and you're going to think this is going to sell. There's going to be a lot of people interested in crickets and tumbleweed. It's like, what? It's like, this is a great property. Why is no one inquiring? So it's quite difficult to actually ascertain that. But this is definitely the top tips for selling your house this spring. So what's the first one we need to think about, Perry?
I think definitely blowing off the cobwebs. I did that myself at the weekend, and I not only did I feel good, my house was looking so much better for it. So, I mean, literally, metaphorically speaking, where spring, it's almost like that old, and there are other lagers, but it's like the kind of Carlsberg effect, isn't it? It's like
Aye.
clean. It reaches all the parts that regulars don't.
Well, that's Heineken. Refreshes all the parts that other people. I see, Sophie. That's wasted on you because that's that's a way back in during that advert. Heineken, the beer that refreshes the parts that other beers cannot reach.
It does, but then
if Carlsberg did estate agents, they just might be Fife Properties, I would say.
Exactly.
So, what are the things we've got to think about?
I think what we need to look at is the areas that you can easily miss. I think that's the thing, because you have prominent things that really stick out, but there's other areas that will be missed, and sometimes those small areas make all the difference. I think the biggest thing I got a shock, I have a log burner, so actually I'm dusting constantly, but dust makes things dull. It really does. And you might not have even noticed it, but I think because we're all couried in the winter, we don't necessarily kind of pay attention to that. So I think definitely giving your house a good spring clean in regards to the dusting. If you've got glass internal doors as well, making sure that they're clean, because that's a big factor.
Yeah.
Dust attracts more dust. I think people don't actually anticipate or realise that. So I think it's really great to get that spring clean, get it nice and shiny. Target those less visible areas like high level shelves. You'd actually be surprised at how many people actually do look at the tops of pictures, and they're walking around, and if you've got cobwebs around your beautiful cornicing, it just is an off-putter, isn't it? Because it's a big factor of, is this house cared for or is it not cared for? What do I expect going through the rest of the rooms?
And it's kind of, spring just highlights us all with the sun, isn't it? It's not as if we're saying don't bring the sun, but it does highlight all these different things, doesn't it?
It really does. And I think not just actually cobwebs, but it's like carpet edges as well. If you've got rugs, or if you've got lovely wooden flooring and you've got maybe high-legged seats, getting that dust under there as well, I think, is a really important thing. All those dark lines need to be taken away, and we need to just get as much brightness in as we can, and I think that's a big factor. I think, as I said earlier, the next thing is make sure you do look at those cobwebs. They can appear from seemingly nowhere on your ceilings and in the corners, and I think that's a real big thing. Light fittings as well, and I'm not just meaning light fittings in your ceiling, but also if you've got lamps and shades. There's sometimes actually things we forget. We dust the table that it's sitting on, but we forget actually the lamp is probably covered in dust, so it isn't really factoring a great deal of light from it. So that's something to think about as well.
Do you think people walk into? Do you think viewers walk into people's houses and they've got the same? Have you ever seen four in a bed? When they go around the hotels and stuff like that, do you think they've got that same sort of, is that sort of program people to look at everybody's stuff and actually think to themselves, is there any, top of window frames and stuff like that and pictures? And do you think anybody does that?
They do, Jim. I've actually had this recently when I was doing some viewings, and the house was a spotless house anyway, but actually because it was spotless and the obvious things were spotless, the viewer was actually going around and then starting to look to almost like they were on a mission to try and find something.
Yeah.
With the white glove out, like this, with the white glove, trying to find something.
Oh, Sophie.
I've yet to have somebody do that. Imagine going around a house and you're doing the viewing and they come out with the white gloves.
Oh my goodness, honestly.
I might actually just do that. I might just actually do that one day, just for the sake of it. Just go around and view a house, because I'm an investor, and I'll maybe go around and view a house one day, and I'll maybe take white gloves over and just run my fingers over stuff. Just to
I think if
I'm doing it with the agent, just to see what the reaction is, just out of curiosity more than anything.
I think you would get a bit of a rebuff there, but anyway. But these things are important. Above cooker hoods is a big thing as well, because in the winter we've probably had our soup pots on and we've been doing all that lovely cooking and stews that we do in winter, but actually we don't necessarily always look upwards, do we? So make sure that the cooker hoods and extractors are all nice and clean. Bathrooms as well is a real big thing for me in the extractors. It's not until you look up actually you appreciate how much dust collects inside those when they're extracting all that moisture from your shower or your bath. They can get quite dirty and dank looking.
You typically get around the doors as well, where you get the drafts coming in the windows. If you've got the old traditional sash and case, which is some houses, because obviously that's the way they have to do, because they're maybe listed. They're maybe a B or a C listing or an A listing, and it makes it quite difficult to get rid of all these wee bits. So you do get dust coming through that way, don't you?
Absolutely. I think as well, for me, I think the final thing is like storage areas. We typically, when we do our walk and talking videos, we don't necessarily open cupboards. And with all the best will in the world, you try not to entice people, because our top tips are put them in boxes and stick them in the cupboard when people are getting ready for their viewings if it's a seller. But you will actually sometimes just get that odd buyer who says, can I just open the cupboard? And you can't say no.
Oh dear.
Because if you say no, they think about what you're hiding. So definitely, you know, just a quick tidy up in those is always a good thing. Buyers sometimes will look. Also kitchen cupboards, if you've got like lovely big larders, if it's a chefy cookie person that's coming to view your house, they're going to want to be able to see what that space is going to work like for them. So larders as well, and cupboards that you've got those types of goods in are a really good thing. Medicine cabinets as well. Built-in wardrobes, again, if they're ones with sliding doors, I've had it recently where the person just slid the door, didn't even ask if they could. The buyer just did it. Thankfully, it was nice and tidy and it was organised, but that was a very positive impression, and that particular property actually did really well on the back of that. So I think just keep things clean, keep it ordered and unstuffed. I think if they go to open the door and all your Tupperware falls out, it's never a good look.
I know. It maybe sends the wrong impression out, doesn't it?
It says this is small.
Does this then mean we should probably be looking to declutter then at the same time?
I would agree. Yeah. I think if you're cleaning, you can't really clean properly unless you've decluttered to begin with, if it's cupboards we're talking about. So absolutely. I think you do need to create a bit of space to make it look like usable space, which I think is great.
And we've put something on here anyway in the blog. So if you want to click on the link, you can get through to it. We've actually got one of our previous blogs that we did was about how 4 ways to declutter and add value of space with a perfect method for you. Now, a top tip, if you don't want to read that, they're only 4-minute reads anyway, these articles. A top tip to do that in order to declutter and make it so simple is just have 3 boxes, one that you're definitely throwing away, one that you're definitely keeping, and one that you're undecided. And then take all your stuff and put them into either box, either category overall. Keep the ones that you're definitely keeping, throw away the ones that you're definitely throwing, and then start again with the undecided and do the same process again. Clearly, don't put them in the undecided bin again. You're just being a stalemate. I thought I might have to point that out just in case somebody brings that up. But that's a really good way to declutter quite effectively and efficiently, and take it's the difficulty of decluttering is the emotional aspect, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. I downsized and it was a big decluttering exercise, and it is an emotional exercise. But once I'd done it, it was amazing how much better it felt. And actually, the house is tidier for it. Your mind's tidier. You've not got so much to tidy and clean. And it's really great, actually, because now when I go out to see clients, I'm actually able to talk about that from first-hand experience, because often we'll go out and see people who are downsizing and they're thinking, what am I going to do with all my stuff? So it really is quite a daunting process, but actually once you've done it, it's quite mind-settling.
Especially if you've been in the house for a long time. That's the difficult. I remember one client actually, I went out to see him, and it was 9 months before he actually put it on the market, because it was Jim, and what he had done in St Andrews, he had actually methodically decluttered over the next 9 months, rather than actually just putting himself under pressure all at once and just saying, I've got to get everything done now within a matter of weeks. He actually planned well in advance, and he got it all decluttered. So by the time you hit the market, it was a done deal. I mean, I think that property was actually sold in a couple of months, easily.
Do you know, I've had the same experience very recently, actually. So we've got a seller who's also bought with ourselves, and I'd gone to see them before Christmas, and then I went to see them last week, and we're now marketing the property. And when I went in, I was like, oh, this looks nice. She says, I know, I was watching your decluttering video and I've been practicing over the last 3 months, and now it's all organised and I don't feel stressed because I've done it all and I'm ready to go.
There's nothing, there probably is, I mean, sometimes it can't be avoided, but there is nothing worse than walking into a house and it's completely cluttered with everything, especially if you're looking to sell. I mean, what's your experience with this, Sophie?
Well, we've had it again recently with a client, and it is when even trying to go in and do the personal property tour, and literally you can only fit your body in, if that, and you just have to kind of pan the camera around and then like reverse back out. It's just not giving the right illusions. Yes, it's maybe is a big room, but all we're seeing is that tiny little snippet. So people automatically discount it, and they can't picture a bed in it. They can't picture their furniture in it. It's a bit like Marmite. People that can either picture it or they can't. It's as simple as that. So if it's that cluttered and you can't even get in the room for starters, it's not a great impression, but it also gives the impression where the property has no storage. If they're having to use this bedroom space or the dining room, perhaps, where's the storage of the property? So it just doesn't give the right impressions off. If it's cluttered, it really doesn't. And then if it's really cluttered as well, it tends to be a lot darker, the room as well. So it could be a really bright house, but then actually with all of the clutter in, it makes it really, really dark. And it doesn't matter how many lights you put on, it's just so, you just get drawn in on yourself. And we appreciate obviously circumstances. Sometimes it can't be helped, but if you just do it bit by bit, just like, manageable chunks, it makes such a difference.
That's where I think the one that we're going to talk about later on brighten every room, is a really important one, and we'll get to that in a minute. But for you, Sophie, I mean, is there some importance then when we come on to the fact about, should we use floral and flowers and everything just to set the mood? Is that important to do?
Absolutely, because I even know myself, I feel better when I'm in my home and there's flowers out. Like, it just adds that pop of color, especially for myself. Like, my interior is quite monochrome, but then I have pops of color with the flowers, and it really does uplift, and it just makes it feel more homely because there's thought put into it, and you're kind of bringing the outside in, and it gives it that kind of invigorating, not only viewing experience, but it helps people picturing it. It's bringing in that spring energy, especially if it's flowers that maybe have aroma as well. That obviously then, because we do, it's not just about what we see, it's about what we hear, it's about what we smell, it's all the senses that we're obviously tapping into. So if we can do that with blooms, then absolutely. But I have come across before where people have said, well, maybe I've got allergies or I've got hay fever, I can't. That's not a problem. There's always a solution. There's so many head to Dunelm or head to B&M. There's so many artificial florals as well that you can get, and you can do it that way. And you get some great ones. So, don't use that.
I've got to admit, I have to touch them just to. Is that fake?
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Yes, I am the person that touches the wet paint sign on the. I am that person. Don't step on this cement. It's like, is that finished yet? Is that set? Yeah. Just curiosity more than anything. Yeah, there is always one, and it's me. It's me. I'll own it. So when we're going into flowers and stuff like that, what sort of things should we be doing? How should we be doing this?
Yeah, so there's different ways, depending on what room we're going into as well. So, for example, if you are the bedroom, think about maybe single cut stems, especially just in little dainty vases. So it's not really overpowering if it's perhaps on a smaller bedside cabinet, or even kind of a living room side table, or perhaps a fireplace where it's a bit of a narrower space. Bathrooms, cloakrooms, think more about dainty and small and not really big kind of full arrangements. Save that for your larger vases, fill them with more flowers, and almost make it a centerpiece, whether if you've got a dining room table or if you've got a kitchen island, somewhere where is a focus within that room and you want to help bring the eye to that focus. That's where you maybe have your large vase, your bigger arrangements. A lot more people are having sideboards and like the consoles in the hallways, or perhaps you've got deep shelves. Once you've dusted them, put a nice flower arrangement on them, and then that's it there. As well, thinking about externally, you don't just need to have it internally. Think about externally, your curb appeal entering into the property. So already we're giving people that mindset and that illusion that we're going into a cared for home. So pots and hanging baskets, have them by the front door, maybe have them up the entranceway. It kind of gives that warm, kind of colourful invitation ready for them to step inside, because we say it time in, time out. It's those first kind of 10 to 30 seconds, it's first impression. So if we're already painting that image from the front door and from the offset, it's then going to help as you flow through the property.
It does make a big difference, doesn't it? I mean, I've got to admit, I'm a bit tight when it comes to obviously buying flowers. Is a surprise. Is that a typical man? Possibly.
No comment.
No comment.
I was waiting to say thank God for that. When you said that. But I've got to admit, when we walk into the kitchen, there's maybe daffodils or that on the dining table. It does brighten the place up. It does make everything look it just lifts everything. And yet it doesn't cost much. I mean, you could effectively get that at your local petrol station. I don't know how much it is now, maybe £3 or something like that for a wee bunch of flowers, and you could stick them in a vase, and it just makes a huge difference to the room.
Absolutely. But then if obviously you're watching this and you're thinking, well, I'm not planning to sell for whatever reason anytime now, then a quick tip and something to really bear in mind is be prepared. And if you're not selling till after spring, think about in the next coming weekends to kind of get your green finger and get your summer bulbs planted, so that when your garden is ready for the photographs and viewings, etc., you do have a full bloom. So think about that as well. Always be one step ahead.
Definitely. So what, Perrie, what's your thoughts on flowers and stuff like that? I mean, what's your what would you say?
Surprise, I'm big on it. Accessorizing, and you know what I'm like. I'm very much so. I did it even myself at the weekend. So I've got nice new baskets along my fence in the garden that I've just put nice pansies and petunias into to make my garden look nice. So I've been working on that over the weekend. Pots at my doorstep that have got nice bulbs in them that are flowering now that look great. And it just makes you feel positive coming back to your home in the evening. So I very much do like them. I like flowers in the house, but I also like scented things within the house. So even if it's melting candles or something, I just like that floralness. I just feel that it makes your house feel bright and fresh and clean and welcoming.
It does. Eric's actually said here, thank goodness nobody's ever looked up his attic, because they've bought and sold 3 houses in the last 12 years, and that's where all the clutter's hidden.
I have a comment to make on that. When I downsized, Eric, I was totally in the same bucket as yourself. So we were on move number 3, and we still, in the loft when we moved to house number 4, had boxes that were still sealed from house move number 1. It gets ludicrous. You just have to decide, if it's been in a box in the attic for 10 years, I really don't need it.
That's the thing, it's a sentimental and it's an emotional attachment to quite a lot of stuff, but you've never ever opened it, and you kind of think, at some point in the future, it's like you're never going to need it ever again. So why would you? I got to this years ago when I had a room. I bought a 3-bedroom semi-detached, and I thought, I'm going to get this, and I literally never used the 3rd bedroom, and it was just a junk tip, for everything. All the clutter and everything went in that 3rd bedroom, and we never ever used it really. And I got to the point where I resented it. And the fact I was having to heat it, pay council tax for it, and all the rest of it. And it was like, what? It's like, this is crazy. So subsequently we sold and moved into a 2-bedroom. But it just shows you, I mean, holding on to a lot of stuff, you probably need to get rid of it, especially if you're downsizing, I would say.
Definitely.
So that then takes us to probably one of the most important ones, and it went on the back of the beginning. It was said about the dust and how it's all highlighted. The sun obviously comes out at this time of year, and it teems in the window. So it will brighten every room. So Perrie, what's your thoughts on this? About the brightness and what we should be doing, how should we be laying out the room in order to make it look right?
I think it's really important to consider that at this stage. Your home always feels like lots of light is coming in now, and everything stands out in regards to dust cleanliness. So you really do need to maintain it and kind of work your magic on springing it up in the indoors. There's no question that the cheapest, quickest, and easiest way to boost natural light is to clean your windows. We spoke about that earlier on. It's a massive thing. Cleaning the windows is huge. I think if you've got glazed interiors, I've got big bulbous glass in all my doors, and literally at the weekend the sun was coming through the kitchen and I was like, oh my god, there's just sticky fingers everywhere, and it just looked terrible. And I pride myself on actually my home being quite organized, but even I was quite shocked at how dirty they were. And it's not, you don't expect it until the sun shines on it. When that light starts,
it highlights all the streaks when you clean the windows. So you better be good at it.
Then, what's the top tips for keeping the windows clean?
Actually, if you're using a scraper, which is the squeegee that you do, you notice I've got action with this. It's like I used to go window cleaner. My first profession when I was a teenage lad. So the best thing if you're cleaning the windows like this and you've got a scraper is actually take a sponge and go right along the top of the window and down the side of the window. So and then wipe your blade and then pull it across. Because what happens if you don't do down the side before you put the blade across, you take all the dirt with you from the corner, and then that's when you end up getting streaks. So there's your top tip. And then when you come really good at it, you just go like that, and then just do it down the bottom.
Like a wand.
And I'm not available to clean people's windows if anybody's going to ask me.
I was just going to ask if you're busy at the weekend. But that is a top one, because actually it really does make a big difference to your property. I think mirrors are a big thing as well. They reflect a lot of the views. They reflect your outside, inside, and vice versa. But again, if they're not clean, it doesn't look great. So make sure that they're nice and simple and sparkly. Glimpses of sky and greenery to your internal walls are really a good thing to have as well. I think that makes a big difference. I've noticed that now with my mirrors. I've got a mirror in my garden as well, and that's really, it bounces the inside and outside, and it makes a big difference. Really clears things up and gives you just that extra burst of colour, and everything feels bigger because it feels like you've got an additional space, even though it's a bit of an illusion.
A mirror in the garden?
Yeah.
I've just got the impression of one of these big mirrors like Snow White.
We won't pose the question.
You just walk out and look at yourself in the mirror. Full-length mirror in the garden.
It actually is a full-size mirror, but it's actually but it's like a patterned one, so it's like a church window, and it's got all blocks through it. So it really just does bounce it, but it just makes things.
Yeah, I've seen that before. I've seen something similar, not probably what you've got, but I have seen people put them on the walls. You know, so you've got the again, Sophie, you'll not remember this. Play school, the square window, the round window, or the arched window. And I have actually seen that on somebody's wall, and that's what it reminds me of every single time. Did anybody ever get it right when they picked it? I used to get it right quite a bit. But now you mention it, mirrors and gardens, actually that works, doesn't it?
It does work. I think internally and externally, it just amplifies light and amplifies size and colour as well. So I think that's good. If you've got glass, you've got metal, you've got ceramics in your property, really important to keep them dusted and clean. They reflect into the room. Even like my front door, we've got nice blue glass in the front door, and I cleaned that at the weekend, and then when the sun was coming through it, the actual stain and the stained glass was shining onto the floor, and it just looked fantastic. So again, it was just a bit of an illusion that it was creating. So I think that's really important. Natural light is kind of top of the hour at the moment, isn't it? Because the houses have been so dark, and I think buyers, for their wish list, that really is what they're looking for. They want a house to be bright and airy and feel colourful. They don't, as Sophie said earlier, they don't want to walk into rooms that feel dank and closed and dark. It really pays to emphasise those areas of your home with brightness if you can, and you've got the space. And again, you don't need to do that as an expensive thing. You can go to B&M, you can go to Dunelm, you can buy these things relatively inexpensively, but they do dazzle up some of the corners in your house, and it will make a big difference as far as your viewers are concerned.
Yeah. Definitely. So when you look at things like, when we go on, then probably the next subject, and we're going to lead into that, is then that brings you into the freshness and how important is things like colour palettes and smells and everything to infuse all these different things. I mean, how important is that, Sophie?
Oh, it's a massive thing, because we now need to be transitioning out of where everybody has picked all the greens and the reds from Christmas and the festivities. Get rid of all that, and it's now doing the spring palette and introducing those really inviting bright colours, your pastel colours, your light blues, your light pinks, your lilacs, your yellows. It's all those spring colours. It's the smells as well. It is, as I said, you're not just doing it what you see, it's all the senses that we really want to trigger. Because it is, and we say this all the time, and that is why we do our videos as well. It's the emotion that we're adding to it. So if we can trigger all those senses, it adds the emotion, it shows the lifestyle, and this is then they can vision themselves in that property with that lifestyle. So it is a big thing to infuse the home with that kind of spirit of freshness. So, interior trends, let's take inspiration from Blooming Meadows. And whether you're accessorizing or decorating or both, there is definitely some tips to kind of capture the essence of the season. First one being introduce accents, a bit like I mentioned for my colour scheme, for example, it's quite monochrome, but I have accents with my flowers and my reed diffusers and my candles, and that's where I add colour. So think about that as well. Think about your colour palette of, as I say, soft lilacs, buttery yellows. Swap out your winter bedding, and especially if you've still got Christmas bedding on, please get that off. Get rid of your winter bedding and your winter throws and your cushions. We've moved on, and add brighter colours with your cushions. Maybe you've got an alcove or an area that you maybe have an accent of colour. Maybe try doing a lighter colour on it as well. Certainly think about as well breaking up potentially any dark or bare walls by hanging pictures or mirrors. Obviously, we've talked a lot about mirrors, but maybe perhaps add in pictures, even if it is pictures of blooms and florals and outdoor scenes, perhaps. If that's not your style, which it's not everybody's, that's fine. Then maybe some abstract prints, or even maybe you've got some absolutely cracking photos that you want to obviously put up. Do that as well. And even if it's maybe a darker photo, maybe think about a coloured frame. And that's another way to add colour as well. You don't necessarily have to just go for a dark frame. Think about that. But think about something that's got plenty of colour and brightness. Again, it's just all about giving that illusion and kind of uplifting the spring vibes. Obviously, Perrie, you mentioned your client having that kind of bowl of different oranges and lemons and limes, and, you know, place that bowl of zesty, citrusy fruits in, whether it be the kitchen worktop, whether they've got a dining table. Think about things like that as well. And especially if flowers just aren't your thing, replace that then with colour in your fruit bowl. Even if you don't eat fruit, it can just be a decoration. Do that. And then, as we said, it's about smells as well. So reed diffusers, and you don't have to spend a lot on them. You can pick them up in the supermarket. You pick them up in Aldi's, B&M's. You know, there's so many cost-effective options. But certainly candles, reed diffusers. You get the wee plugins as well. You even you see people doing all sorts, and that's what's great about social media. Even like I've seen a wee hack where somebody, you know, like tumble dryer sheets. People put them inside their kind of cushions, so it giving that smell as well, or put them down the back of the radiator. There's so many different cost-effective options, again, to just give that illusion of a clean home, and then that adds to kind of the spring feel.
What's your thoughts on this, Perrie? I mean, you know, this is your forte. You love this sort of thing. I'd say, because I saw you were like, I want to talk. It's like, where it just switches me off.
No, I'm all about accessorising.
Yeah, start at the beginning and give us your lowdown then for this.
Yeah,
this
I mean,
about what
for me, I'm all about
accessorise everything.
I accessorise everything. I think accessorising is a real big thing. I think it really brings the home together. You don't necessarily have to have multiple colours. You can have like a plain walled room, but then it's cushions, it's throws, it's nice vases, it's flowers, it's colours, it's the scents. It's all of your senses coming alive basically when you come into a home, and I think that's really important. And sometimes actually you don't even necessarily need to buy new things. I actually had the situation at the weekend when I was cleaning. I thought, oh, actually, I wonder if this would work better in the other room. And so I didn't actually have to purchase new things. I just shimmied them around in different rooms, and it made those rooms look different, and it made the items stand out more. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go out and spend cash. You can just make it look nicer. And sometimes actually by taking 2 or 3 things away makes the 1 or 2 things you've left behind stand out a bit better, because it's not so cluttered. So I think that that's really important. I think it's great to have pops of colour. I think that makes a difference. You know, I've got a cream sofa, but then I've got a green side chair. Would that work? You wouldn't think so, but actually it looks great.
It does, yeah. Now I think about it, it's like it's got the green and gold, I would say. Yeah, that would work very, very well.
And it's mixing up fabrics as well. You know, the sofa's leather, but the chair's fabric. So again, it's just all these warm tones that you're bringing through your home, but actually make them pop out, because it will make your home look different from everyone else's, because we'll all have a different style of how we do it. And so it's just about putting that into play into your property to make it pop. And I think that's important.
Good. Okay. So then we've covered things like, you know, the freshness and the style and the smells and you know, the cleaning and the decluttering and making sure you bring all the natural light in by opening the curtains, cleaning the windows, bringing as much in as possible. Line of sights are probably so important as well in this, and the fact that people can see an easy access, especially into a bay window, for example. You know, if they can see easy access into bay windows are traditionally areas where people can sit and probably just watch the world go by. I mean, they're really good for that as well. So there's a lot of different things, and you can bring the bursts in, as you said, Perrie, with the mirrors and stuff like that, angle them in different ways in order to brighten corners, which otherwise wouldn't be as bright as they would be. I'm a big fan of using daylight lighting and bulbs, because you can put them on during the day if it's a wee bit darker because it's maybe overcast outside, and it makes a fundamental difference inside a room, and no one ever knows the lights are on. That's what I think is really good about using these types. So Philips Daylight is a really good bulb for that, a natural light. So your colours actually look like colours that you put on the wall in the first place from the tin. Because I don't know about you, but by the time you get from B&Q, for example, or any other DIY store, Wix, for example, and then you look at the colour there and then you put it on your wall and you think, that's not the same colour. It's like, how's that different?
It's true.
And generally, a lot of the times it's down to your lighting and the way you've done it. And it's just your lighting's just maybe got a yellow tint in it or a cool tint in it, and it makes a fundamental difference to the colour on the wall. It's kind of like I'm doing deep sea diving now, and you go down and red looks brown when you're when you're down in the deep. Red is actually brown. It just changes the colours because the way it is. So that's the things you've got to watch out for, especially if you buy the right colours and then you get home and you think this is a different colour now because it's contrasted with it and it's influenced it. The last thing I would want to talk about then is probably, and I think you touched on it at the beginning, Sophie, about the curb appeal, and this is all about taking lockdown taught us many things, but it also taught us the garden could be a really valuable asset to a property and effectively become another room, but outdoors. So it's taken the inside out and putting more emphasis on the garden, and especially for a young family that wants to utilize the garden and be out in the outdoors, and especially if you've got a south-facing garden as well, which is ideal, and to take advantage of that. If you've not got a south-facing garden, there's other advantages you can take as well. But how important is that then, Sophie, about what, you know, that having the outside right, and what can we do about that?
Oh, absolutely. So gardens, balconies, you know, courtyards, they add serious value to a property. I've just uploaded a pre-portal onto the eSnook page, and the garden of the property has, and I've not seen this before, it has a garden dome in it, and it's coming with the property. And that as they said to me, that is our outdoor living space. Like, that is an additional room to our property, because that is where we put it in lockdown, and it was a godsend. We're able to sit in there out of the wind, uninterrupted views, so peaceful. And honestly, I sat in that today and it was amazing. It was absolutely perfect, and it adds so much value because it is that additional space. It had wee trinket lights around it. They had a table in the center. So if you have got some outdoor space, no matter how big or small, there is definitely some foolproof tips to kind of ramp up the sale price. But I'm going to be completely honest, I'm not going to give this justice if I talk about it, because we all know that Perrie is the green finger and is all about outdoor garden space. So I'm going to let Perrie talk you through it, because I just won't give it its justice, because I'm just not a garden girl.
I love my garden. I love my garden. So I'm totally in the middle of doing my garden just now. And you're right when you talk about spaces, and size doesn't matter, apparently. So you literally can accessorize an outdoor space and make it really beneficial to you, but also for anyone coming along. They can see a stylish space outside. You know, as long as you've got somewhere to sit. People always want somewhere to sit in the garden, don't they? Yeah. It's the beauty of it. You want to go outside, you want to sit, and you want to soak it in, you want to listen to the birds, you want to just enjoy the being outside. But I think accessorizing it and keeping it nice and bright, again, just like your home, it is an extension of outside. I think, as Jim, you said, everyone has revamped their gardens. How many times now do we go to properties and see garden rooms? We never saw that before. But, it's nearly every other one has one now, because it's something that people really strive for. And people are staying at home a wee bit more as well, I think. So I think it's really important to do that. I think style is a good thing. You want to have outside spaces. So if you've got, like me, I've got outdoor rugs, I've got seating areas, I've got campfires, I've got lights, I've got false flowers, honestly, you name it, I've got it in my garden. But I think if you're going to have those things, it's important that you clean them as well. Just because it's outside, don't think it's not getting dirty, because it is. It's the same as being indoors. If you're bringing all your rugs out, you're going to need to start hoovering them and washing them down, depending on what they're made of, because actually someone coming outside is not going to think that looks great if it's got all the winter moss and mold on it. It needs to be cleaned.
Hoover the AstroTurf.
Yes, it's true. You need to. You absolutely need to. And it makes a big difference. But even if you've got your coffee tables, if you've not necessarily put them indoors over winter, I had to clean mine at the weekend because the glass on it was all green with algae because of the winter. So, I cleaned that down. It took me 2 seconds to do it. I've got a lovely blue pot and I've got a bright orange flower in it, and I've popped that on the wee table, and it's just like a whole new look. And it literally was a flower. It was like $1.99 from B&M's. So you don't need to spend a lot of money to do these things, but really important to do them. So make sure that things are clean, make sure that they're tidy. Jet washing decking is a big thing as well, because I don't know about you, but if you've walked on decking at this time of the year, it's really slippery as well. Yeah, it's not safe to walk on. So I've had to do mine at the weekend. So that's a real big thing. Same with your paths and your patios. They'll be all green, algae looking as well, just with the winter months. Your lawns as well. Just be careful with this one, though, because I had to take a bit of care at the weekend. We've all got lots of leaves in the corner of our gardens, haven't we? But just be mindful of nature when you do this, guys. I know you want a nice garden, but sometimes the little hedgehogs are hiding in all those bunched up leaves and things like that. So just be careful.
We've got a new hedgehog.
Have you?
Brookland. It was actually found by one of the sanctuaries somewhere else, and the people took him in because there was something wrong with him. And they brought it back to the owner or the person that found him, and they said, well, we've got nowhere to put him, so we've put him in our garden. So he's somewhere in our garden. He turns up for food every now and again at the door.
Perfect.
But he's called Brookland.
Well, there you go. Maybe
Prickles will not be happy when he wakes up after hibernation, I'll tell you. Because he'll not be the only hedgehog in the garden now.
Oh dear, competition. But that just as a wee side note, just take care of that as well, because you want nature in your garden. You need to look after it as well when you're clearing out. So getting all those leaves lifted is a good thing, and then just get some new blossoms added. And as Sophie said, even if you're not thinking about it in spring, you can plant all your bulbs that are going to come up in the summer months. It'll look great. But it just you can go out and just accessorize your garden with plants quite simplistically and cheaply as well. Amplifying the feeling of extra room outside with those interior touches that I talked about by having rugs, sofas, throws. They're really important. Nice cushions, I think, are great in a garden as well. Blankets are nice too, because it's actually, today is a beautiful sunny day. I've got our bars sitting in my garden, so I've got like nice cushions sitting on that, and I've got wee rugs over it as well. So Billy comes in after work, if he's wanting a wee bit fresh air, he can just sit there, but it's maybe a bit cooler still because we're just in spring. So they're really great things to have as well, and they're really cheerful. If you've got somebody arty in the family like me, I'm quite lucky. My sister's very arty, so she actually did a cushion for me, and it's in wool, and it's a big red ladybird. You're not surprised I've got a big ladybird cushion in my garden, are you?
Yeah, no.
So things like that are really great as well. So you can actually even make it yourself, which I think is quite nice, or gift it to someone. So always a nice thing to do. And lots of pots with spring blooms that I think really give great colour to your garden too. You don't need to put a lot in the garden, but actually even just sporadically throughout your garden is a really nice way to do it. And clean all your pathways and get all the weeds out of the way as well. I think that's really important at this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've got hanging baskets and also pots maybe from the summer that's got like sticks in them, get those all cleared out. You're maybe not ready to plant yet, just take them down, put your baskets away in your closet or your cubby just now until summer comes, and it just freshens up the whole look of the garden, doesn't it?
Yeah. So what advice then would you give for anyone looking to sell then? Would you tell them to go for it now? or would you tell them to wait a wee while till the blooms come out? What would you be telling them right now then?
I'd be telling them to go now. It's always now, isn't it? And actually, you can buy the blooms that are already in bloom. So you literally could spend an hour on a Saturday, get some pots from the garden store, plant the blooms, clean the deck, put them down. You're good to go, aren't you? These tasks that we talk about and all these tips that we're giving are not things that take days or weeks or even months to do. This is something you can do on a weekend.
So, Sophie, then, give your thoughts on this as well. So what should we be telling people that potentially have all that in their garden already and they're kind of waiting for it all to come out? You know, should they be getting you out now and then in preparation? So basically, you know, it's the critical path as usual. It's like this has to be done before this gets done, before that gets done, and then by that time all that's done, then the blooms are out in the garden, so we're ready to go. Is that the best advice you would give people? Maybe waiting on their gardens to bloom rather than actually being in a position to say, I tell you what, we'll just buy stuff and we'll put it in.
Yeah, then absolutely get us out. We can then get everything organized. We can get all our kind of ducks in a row. They can get their ducks in a row. And as well, people are sometimes can be so critical on themselves in their own home, whereas we could actually walk in and we're like, we could do photographs today. This is perfect.
I know.
Sometimes some people are so critical of their own home. So actually they might be thinking all of this. We get through the door and we're like, this is beautiful. Let's just go. What are we waiting for? So or we could be actually, seeing as we're waiting for that to get done, I would recommend maybe just giving that a wee touch up or doing this. But the main thing is get us through the door, because we're the experts at the end of the day, so we can give you our advice and then see what next steps look like to suit you and your home.
Plus the fact if it takes a wee bit longer to sell, because the market might be a different market than what it is now, but if it takes a wee bit longer to sell because that's the type of property you've got, and potentially it was like that for you when you bought it, then you're probably better to do a lot of preparation beforehand and just get on with it in order to fall in line with exactly what you're needing to do. A classic example right now is if a solicitor then takes 3 months to conclude the missives and do all the legal work and the conveyancing, and then it takes 2 months on average, because that's what it takes in Fife just now, and in other areas as well. It's probably taking on average about anything between 2 months, I would say, round about that, right across Scotland as well. Then if it takes 2 months, you're effectively 5 months away from actually concluding and moving.
You're in summer.
So if we're sitting, for example, and it's March, so March, April, May, June, July, August. You'll be August, September. You're almost 6 months is into September, and you're almost at the back end of summer. And you're at the start of the new schools. So if you're looking to get relocated for a new school or the new school term in Scotland very soon, then you're probably going to have to make a decision now, aren't you?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree that that's absolutely the case. And I had this exact situation that Sophie mentioned there when I was at a property yesterday, and they said, oh no, we've got a long list of things we need to do. And I sat there and I said, well, talk me through the first 2 things on that list. And they said, and I was like, this house is perfect. I could take photos today. I would be happy to do the walkthrough video right now. The house is perfect. You don't need to do anything. So sometimes it's a misconception as well. And as Sophie said, you know, if we haven't been out to see it, then actually you won't know if you're ready or not ready, because you've lived in the property and you've maybe got some blockers in your mind of what you think it would want to look like when it goes to market. But actually, we can give you that guidance on that, can't we?
So with the same information then, I mean, you know, for somebody that possibly thinks that they're determined that they should have to change their kitchen or change their bathroom, what sort of advice would you say to them just now then? What would be the best advice? Just go and change it, or?
I think it depends really on what the current kitchen looks like. There can be situations where there's varying options available to them. You know, it may be a property actually that you could change the kitchen and maybe spend 10,000, but actually won't add 10,000 in value. So is it worth doing it? It could be that you end up putting a 10 or 15 grand kitchen in, and the new buyers come along, they go, actually, I don't like this kitchen, and take it out. It could be actually that there are some other ways that you can streamline it. Jim, when we first started working together, you sold my house. I had a really dreary kitchen. It was dark brown. It was the original kitchen from when it was built. I got a company in that local to Fife, and they basically vinyl wrapped my kitchen, and it became a white kitchen overnight. It only cost me £900. It was much cheaper doing that and my utility. So there are ways that you can do it without necessarily needing to replace the high items. Kitchens and bathrooms are very personal things, aren't they? They're the two things that anyone buying a home is going to look at and decide whether they like or going to change it. But it could be that your buyer will be happy to go with it because it's not broken, it works, they can move in, and then they can do it when they're ready. So actually, it doesn't matter if you feel that it looks a bit dated. It's what works for your buyers.
Mm-hmm. And that then comes back to the fact that you're better to actually get you out first to have a look and discuss it with them first before they actually do anything rash. And then you end up walking in the door and thinking you've spent 20 grand in this kitchen, you're never going to get your money back.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And effectively, there's a ceiling price in this area, so you're going to struggle to get that past that ceiling price as well. And you more or less just price yourself at the market.
I understand where sellers are coming from on that regard, because they want to show they're proud of their home and they want to show off in its best light.
Yeah.
But they are looking at it from a different angle from a potential buyer, and so that's where you need some kind of honest feedback from an agent that's understanding the area and what's selling, what works, and what their buyers are looking for.
Definitely. And I'll leave the last word to Angela. I've had my grass cut, first cut of the season, and it's looking good just with the grass getting cut. So it's all these simple things, isn't it?
It is.
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks very much for coming on. If anybody's wanting any more information, please feel free to message us direct on these posts. We can pick up that message, or you've got contact details in this post as well. If you click on the link in the blog, you'll get contact details from us as well if you need to contact us. Until next time, guys, thanks very much for coming on. Really appreciate it. And any more information, please get in touch. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.